Hi guys, today we're going to continue our lesson on commas. Now our last class we talked about two things. First, we do not always erase information between two commas, and that in one sentence there can be many different comma usages. Now today I want to focus on these different comma usages, and there are roughly about 6 comma usages that we have to know. The first comma usage and the most important comma usage is to separate an adverb in the beginning of the sentence. For example, when I say yesterday I sang, I need to put a comma between the word yesterday and I in order to separate the modifier or the adverb from the sentence. Likewise, in the second sentence, with my friends I sang. In the third sentence, because I was feeling happy I decided to dance, I need to use a comma to separate the adverb from the sentence, to clarify where the sentence begins. Of course, when you're reading, you'll sometimes see the writer omitting the comma. Now in this case, it's the writer's choice, but for a punctuation section on the writing test, you have to remember this comma usage. And there's one more concept you have to learn within this usage. Now, comma is not generally used when the adverb is used after the sentence. For example, let's compare these two sentences in the screen. In the first sentence, yesterday I sang, I will put a comma between the word yesterday and I. But in the second sentence, I sang yesterday, where the adverb comes at the end of the sentence, we do not generally use the comma. The second usage is to separate transition in the beginning, middle, and end. Let's look at the 3 examples in the screen. I could say however, comma, I sang. I could also write I, comma, however, comma, sang. And finally, I can write I sang, comma, however. The third usage is connecting 2 sentences with fanboys. As you can see in the screen, it is very straightforward and easy. But the reason I am teaching you all these differences is that if you can identify which comma belongs to which usage, it will actually help you understand the sentence much better. So let's move on to the 4th usage. We also use a comma when we're listing more than 3. For example, I can say I bought A, B, and C, or I like to sing, dance, and play. We'll have to put a comma between each list. The 5th usage is our favorite one, right? To separate non-essential modifier, the information we can erase. For example, in the sentence, Jack, a boy from London, arrived. The information between 2 commas is a non-essential modifier, and the purpose of the commas here is to separate that. And if you remember our last lesson, I told you that it's never about the number of commas. For example, in our last sentence, I met Jack, a boy from London. Even though there's only 1 comma, we can still erase the information because this is a non-essential modifier. And this brings to our final usage that is fundamental for SAT writing. We also use a comma to separate adjectives when order doesn't matter. For example, in the sentence, it was a long, cold winter. The order of the adjective doesn't matter because I can also say it was a cold, long winter. Another way of writing an adjective when order doesn't matter is using the word and. For example, it was a cold and long winter. So remember that when the adjective order doesn't matter, we can use a comma to separate them. Now, what is interesting is that writing section of the SAT will not actually test you this specifically, but as you will learn later, SAT will use this punctuation along with other punctuation concepts to trap you. And when that time comes, I will show you some examples. Now, before we wrap up, I want to share one more detail. When the order of the adjective is important, we cannot use the comma. For example, in the sentence, I have a white cotton shirt. I cannot say cotton white shirt because that wouldn't make sense, right? The adjective order here is fixed, and in this situation, we did not use the comma to separate 2 adjectives. So let's review what we learned today. There are roughly 6 usages of commas that we need to understand to ace the writing section of the SAT. We can use the comma to separate an adverb in the beginning of the sentence, to separate a transition in the beginning, middle, and end, to connect 2 sentences with fanboys, to list more than 3, to separate non-essential modifier, and finally, to separate adjectives when order doesn't matter.